Look at Walter. Walter is pimping right now.
He's just chilling.
Yeah.
He's well practiced.
He got a good meal.
He won't stay forever, but I figured I'm not going to be on here for a while. Summer camp starts, so things get full gas for me. So when I can get on, I'll get on, but it's going to be tight for the next couple weeks for sure. So I figured I'd bring him along because one, he's getting older, and two, we won't be here for a little while.
Yeah. Does he come to camp with you? Or you keep him at home? It's too much with the kids there.
He's been to every single camp. This will be the first
Fantastic.
year where he might stay home. Yeah, he's the co-founder of Pedaling Minds.
Is he getting a little gray there, or is that natural coloring?
It's all gray.
He's graying.
He's 13.
How old is he?
Black, 13.
He just gave us a look like, are you talking about my gray?
It's distinguished looking.
He's like, bro, I'm way older than you.
You're Wally.
Yeah. Hi, Walter.
Hi, Walter.
Hey, Walter.
How are you?
Speak.
What's happening?
He's like, what? Why am I hearing voices?
Walter.
He's like, Dad, come on, man. Like, for real. Enough of this shit. I've been dealing with it for 13 years.
I made a newsreel on Instagram once. I deleted it. I don't really know why I deleted it. I just deleted it. But we had made a newsreel about the pandemic because we had time. So yeah. Anyways, this is where
it was the volcano one. Yeah.
Yeah.
The volcano was hysterical.
I showed it to him. Yeah.
It was hysterical. Back to you, Mike.
Up.
Back to you, Mike. So good.
Yeah. Well, now I'm all insecure about that shit, and I don't even know why that is. Why does social media do that? I don't know if it's
designed to do.
Yeah.
It's designed
to. What do you mean? That's what it's designed.
It's designed to either inflate your ego or make you feel real bad about yourself. One or the other.
Yeah, I gotta question the efficacy of what it was attempting to do. It's addictive.
No. It is entertainment. It's a form of entertainment for sure.
Yeah.
I just don't like the way it makes me feel. Like when I post something, having to think about it. And I don't know. I'm probably not alone in this, but I just don't like the way it makes me feel. Like, oh, I'm worried about what people think. I fucking hate that feeling. So
it's like an interactive version of TV, like what TV was for us as kids.
Yeah. Yeah.
Except now it's like up a level. More addictive.
Oh, it's way more addictive.
I think it only becomes an issue if we let ourselves fall into the whole comparison game and don't keep the realistic perspective of what you see of somebody else's stuff on social media is not their reality, and we know that. And honestly, does anybody really give a shit or think about that much about what
it's also so
you personally
much of it
post?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't mean to interrupt.
Well, it's I've thought about it quite a bit, but something that I've actually been getting more knowledgeable about is the idea of, or somebody pointed something out, and it has to do with some habits and tendencies of people that are kind of like me. And it's that a bit of advice is to not pick up the phone and not look at any social media until like after you've eaten breakfast or whatever. And while I haven't gone that far yet, I have definitely delayed it when I wake up. And then I also make Parker not pick up his iPad first thing in the morning. And it's amazing how much more stuff that we're getting done. And I realized, because the way it was explained, and I found it to be true, it's the same draw and addiction that I had with smoking. So first thing in the morning, as soon as I wake up, got to go have a cigarette. And it's exactly the same with the phone. It hits the same centers in my brain. It makes me feel exactly the same way. And it's probably why I don't think about smoking at all now. It's because I got this, and it's doing the same thing for me. If you took this away, I would probably have a problem first thing in the morning.
If you took that away from everybody would have a problem.
Yeah. No, I mean,
it's crazy.
by problem, I would be back smoking for sure.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, maybe not for sure, but the temptation would be there.
Yeah,
mm-hmm.
I would want to fill it with another addiction of some sort.
Yeah,
it
is crazy. You travel, and if you just pay attention for 30 seconds, literally, like so many people are on their phones, kids, adults.
It's ridiculous.
It's insane.
Yeah, because when the kid acts up, what does the parent do?
I gotta say, though,
hand him the iPad. Yeah, exactly.
I've seen a lot of there's like occasionally you'll see like videos and clips on social media where people attack that when you've got kids having a lot of screen time and this and that. I will say that there was one thing I watched. It's hilarious. It's people before they have kids. They're like, I'm not going to let my kid have any screen time until they're 2, and we're going to do this, we're going to do that, we're going to do this. My God, it's crazy when you got a kid and you actually have the ability. It's just like you hand it to them. It is the built-in babysitter, and it's insane. And there are definitely times when you need it. And for our generation, it was the same, but we had TV.
Yeah,
our parents would stick us in front of the TV.
I was in a playpen watching Sesame Street when I was a kid, and my mom was doing all of her business from home stuff.
They had televisions when you were a kid?
They did. They were brand new.
Black and white still, I'm assuming.
It's crazy.
I remember getting a TV too. It was a big deal for us, and I was born in '82.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
Yeah, no, and before that, what were you doing? You were outside doing chores or run around the neighborhood with your friends.
Yeah, run around the neighborhood. We spent our time running around the neighborhood, capture the flag, hide and go seek, fighting.
Yeah, I used to have
fighting.
When I bought the house that I currently live in, the kids across the street, they were always outside and they were always loud and they had bullhorns and they were running up and down the street, and they had a buddy they'd play with a few houses down, and it bothered me at first when I first moved in, and then I looked at it for a second. I'm like, wait a minute, these kids are outside playing, having fun. I'm not mad at this.
Right.
This is so good because they could be just sitting in front of the TV playing video games, and they're outside causing a ruckus. Yeah, is it annoying? A little bit, but some of it was kind of really funny and entertaining to watch.
These are Brad Dash's kids, right?
No, I have different stories about that.
Well, save that for another podcast, Brad.
Yeah. You have to come on.
Yeah. All right. I guess I will formally do an introduction because we haven't done it yet, but welcome to episode 94 of the Road is Dead podcast. I'm Rob Curtis here in the studio with
Tim Strelecki,
Leah Sanda,
and joining us electronically using the newfangled computational devices out in Colorado, we have.
Yeah, it's Mike Friedman.
And we're obviously already rolling. I don't even know if I'm going to go back and edit any of that. We're just going to start in with that and confuse people. But
don't we always do that?
Yeah, I mean, we got a few hundred of our good friends that are listening to this. That's fine.
Shout out.
I'm going to take these off. I'm going to take these off.
Well, you got to flip them down at least on video. There you go.
Yeah.
There,
I highly recommend them. I don't know why people think these are like weird.
Where did you get them?
For those that are listening to this, Mike is demonstrating some flip down shades.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Okay. Fair enough. It's not all
video. That's putting it mildly.
They're a game changer.
They're kick ass.
Yeah, they are kick ass. Yeah, they're only like
where did you get them?
I bought these on Amazon. I needed them quick, so I got them on Amazon. But I also had to find something that fit the shape of these glasses because these things are like old. Anyways,
nice.
I highly recommend getting flip downs for any pair of glasses. They're a game changer, and you just have to own them.
They would never fit my glasses. Whenever I got them, they would never fit my glasses. Kind of like the drop-in shields for side shields for manufacturing. I would always have to get special glasses made. Anyway, that's not interesting.
That's not why we're here.
I didn't talk to a lot of you guys about what we were going to talk about today. I talked to Tim this morning a little bit about it, but Giro coming to a close, and I have not been paying attention to a lot of it, but one kind of thing that I was noticing going on in the social medias is I was seeing a lot of people, at least on the professional side of racing, that were really kind of going to town. I saw a lot of things. Apparently, a lot of people got sick and went home.
Yeah, week one was a COVID fest, a gastrointestinal disease floating through the peloton, so lost a lot of the top riders and top GC competitors.
Yeah. So we got a lot of people going home and getting sick, not finishing it. And then the next week, last week, I believe, it was all about the weather. Yeah.
More bad weather, yeah.
Yeah, the weather was pretty consistently bad there for a while.
So what I saw as a consistent theme going around online were a lot of people that were a part of this attacking those that were attacking them, saying riders are just getting weak. that they're getting weaker nowadays. They don't know how to toughen it out. They can't harden the fuck up, so to speak, HTFU. And they just can't do what the old riders did. And I kind of wanted to talk about that concept for a minute. And I really kind of wanted to get Mike's point of view on some of this specifically because first of all, is it critical? I'll throw this out to everybody. Is it critical to the sport that we have this lore of it being harder and tougher, and that's what drives us to like this sport? That those that perform at the highest levels have to perform in all conditions, regardless of how broken they are, how broken their bodies are, or how broken the course is. Are we so addicted to that idea of that's what cycling looks like to us that the sport has to exist there, and if it doesn't, then everyone else is a wimp and we can cast everybody off and they have no value to us anymore? Discuss.
I don't know. I think it's just today's racing is different than 10 years ago, which is different from 10 years ago, which is different from 10 years ago. And the riders in each decade and generationally are different riders. I think, in my opinion, what I see a lot of today and of the younger 20-somethings that are at the top of the professional peloton and even in domestically, they're just different riders. They're different riders. They're not putting themselves necessarily into buckets of I'm a sprinter, I'm a climber. Yes, there are those riders that fall into those categories, but I think today's rider is just different. Like they just want to kind of almost be more of an all-arounder than just fill one specific niche within cycling, like the sprinter, like I was saying. But I think today's rider is just different. I think that's just generationally.
That's with the rider, but are we wanting and demanding that the sport be this quote unquote, I'll say tough guy, but it's tough everyone because it's on the men's and women's side of the sport? Do we just need everybody to be they just need to be the toughest people around, and we need them to go through superhuman conditions and do things that we don't see anybody else do? The old meme of you have the football or soccer player who takes a dive when they're not even touched and rolling around on the ground, and then the next frame, the one is, this guy pretends like he's hurt, whereas then the next frame you show a cyclist that's torn up from one side to the other, and it said this guy pretends like he's okay.
Yeah.
And it's like we hang on to this, we fetishize this whole how horrible and hard and difficult and crazy this whole sport is. Does it have to be that way in order to entertain us?
I can see how you can say that it would have a negative connotation, right? I mean, if everyone thinks it's this god awful, extremely difficult thing to get into, racing specifically, I can see how that would be perceived as a negative thing. But racing is hard; it's not easy, right? And you have to go that hard to get there. But it's not just racing that we're talking about, is it? We're talking about riding in general. Or are we talking about racing?
It's just the perception of the sport, in my opinion. So it's like
so bike racing or cycling.
Yeah. Okay. I have a theory. I don't mean to jump forward, but I have a little bit of a theory with this, and it's kind of what we like to see the people racing at the highest end of the sport suffer. And we like to see it. This is my theory. We like to see that because we know what it's like to suffer. Those of us that are normal humans, when we go out and we get on a bicycle, we hit our limitations very quickly. We know how hard certain things are. We know how much it hurts. And it would be completely disheartening if every time we looked at a race, we never saw anybody ever suffering. And really, to see some of these athletes suffer, you've really got to put them through 3 weeks of hard shit and in horrible situations, overcoming some of the biggest climbs in the world before you finally see them crack. And by God, we love to see them crack. And that's kind of the thing that like ticks us, makes us like go in this sport. The fact that we can finally have some identifying thing with those pros and see that they're human. Do we have to have that though in order to continue with the sport? In other words, do the fact that we're now entering a generation of racers who will listen to their body, that won't drive themselves into an early grave, hopefully, that will, when they're sick, pull out of things and not persevere for the sake of perseverance. And, now we have riders who are standing up for, why are we racing in these conditions? Why are we racing through this town with the road furniture condition the way that it is? This isn't safe. Standing up for their rights, standing up for their well-being, it's a part of the culture of the generation that's coming through to begin with in society in general. But it seems like now it's impacting racing. Does it make it, I don't know how I want to say it. Does it make it less hard? Does it make it less?
No. It makes it less hard for sure.
Tough. Does it make them less tough for not?
I think
doing
it makes it. I think ultimately you want a balance between tough and hard, and tough conditions, and just straight up dangerous conditions. I think when they shortened the one stage, I forget which stage it was, they cut off the whole beginning part, the first major climb, because the road condition was pretty bad at the top. I mean, there was, a wall, like a foot of snow on either side of the road, and it was maybe there was enough space in between the two banks of snow to get a car through there, and the pavement condition was really in bad shape. And it was like, okay, yeah, would it have been entertaining to watch the peloton and everything try to get through there safely? Would there have been issues? Absolutely. It would have been good TV viewing, but unnecessarily dangerous for everybody involved.
Absolutely. You're not in the racer's shoes, and you keep putting them in those situations, and before long you don't have a peloton because everyone's crashed out, everyone's sick, everyone's, at some point you got the riders have to do what they did and take a stand and say, no, we're not going to do this.
What did they take a stand for? What was the situation with the weather? And
they didn't really take a stand on the weather per se. It was just the one stage they shortened because the road conditions, in order to get both the peloton and the caravan and everything through there, was just not feasible.
Yeah.
Could they have managed to get through there? Yes. Would they have gotten through there without issue? No. It was not actively snowing, I don't think. I don't know what the conditions were in the weather for that day, but it had snowed. There was snow. The pavement was in very poor condition, and there wasn't a whole lot of space. I mean, the narrowness of the top was pretty tight, super tight.
Yeah.
So it was just like, yeah, no, this is kind of stupid. And I could see, once I saw the commentators that were up there standing at the top and seeing the conditions of the road, I was like, oh yeah, that I could totally see that would just not make.
Sounds like someone made the right call.
That would not make it safe.
Yeah,
not safe.
You know what?
And it wasn't weather specifically. It was road. It was just the conditions of the road.
Made for a better stage. It was only 76K instead of the 100
hard,
some K, and then it was
aggressive start right from the get go.
500
right
meters
into the
of flat,
second hill, boom,
straight into a climb. So that's dramatic racing.
We're talking about a couple different things here that are actually really quite interesting. But those shorter stages are interesting because it's not a crit; it's a short road race, so it's going to be a intense,
more dynamic
race. Yeah, which I think is interesting. Why don't we see more of those? Usually you're right, Rob, it's like this long arduous thing before they crack,
we're jumping into this a little bit early, but I wanted to get to this. So let's
go make sure we go back to what we were talking about.
We will. Yeah. So it does do races that are shorter. Is that where we're heading in the sport? Because quite honestly, when you get somebody off the street and they're going to watch a stage race like this, first time ever seeing anything, stage racing is boring, like very boring.
Yeah.
For anybody who doesn't know anything about racing, does it become more exciting when we make it shorter? I say it does, but then at what point do we change the nature of the racing? Because we were trying to talk about it earlier. 70 miles or 70.
Yeah, I think anywhere between 75 and 100, 110 would make for an awesome race versus 160, 180. I mean, I don't think you're ever going to change the distance of the 5 monuments. Those are going to be set in stone, and you're never going to get, your San Remo's never going to be shorter than, I don't know, what is it, almost 300K? I don't think it, I think that would be frowned upon. But other races, yeah, could you have a stage race that has stages that are as long as they are now with, say 7 of the 21 peppered in that are much shorter?
We've got to back up here for a second. Talking about the shorter stage, the races are long, and they've been long for a long time. With like way like
they used to be way longer,
and way different equipment and no support and like like very different level of racing. And the races are long because of that reason. Well, partially because of that reason. I mean, it's been history. So it's like you have to be, and let's face it, when you're out there doing an event like that, especially back in the day, you're in all the weather, you're in all the various situations, so it's like, of course it became that. It's nostalgic, really.
But that's the thing. Is it ready for the sake of nostalgia, or is it time to actually make it more interesting?
I think about it though. Think about this. The stages, even like how many times last year in the Tour de France or other races in seasons prior have the distances been long or similar, and the racing is just faster and they're doing the distance quicker. Riders are getting stronger. Riders are getting faster. The equipment's better. The aerodynamics is better. The peloton's moving in a different way. So they're doing races quicker. Do you need to shorten them?
It's a big difference racing 100-mile versus 130 versus 160.
Oh yeah.
Versus 75-mile race. It is a big difference. I mean, it's double the distance. It's
I think all of us as spectators and participants in the sport of cycling, yeah, I would love to see a 60-mile stage and see how that pans out, and just how the dynamics of the race plays out and how much it shakes up.
It'd be so fast.
The GC, and it would be ridiculous. They do it in like 2.5 hours or less.
That's the thing. I was just doing the math in my head, and I'm like, we would be getting down to like 2-hour races, 2.5 hour races. That seems weird.
Yeah.
I don't know that it's wrong, but it just kind of seems weird.
No, but then you got to pepper in like TV airtime for sponsors of the event, and are they getting their money's worth? And you can open up a whole Pandora's box in that regard if races are shortened and much faster. So who knows? But I do enjoy every now and then a shortened stage or a shortened race because it's so dynamic.
Yeah, I think it makes it more interesting. On my hand, I would much prefer them to be shorter. But tradition.
Yeah.
But this is along with this, and feel free to jump in at any point, but this is along those same lines of the tradition and nostalgia. And we go back to this whole idea of the sport is built on suffering. And that's what we like, and that's what we see. And we do fetishize the suffering. And I have to admit, I came to the sport, and we've talked about it before. What made me kind of hook onto the sport was the idea of seeing Andy Hampsten on his way to a victory for the overall, climbing the Gavia at the Giro through the snow. And me seeing that picture and deciding that this was one of the toughest sports around, and I wanted to be a part of that. And I wanted to learn how to suffer like that. And that was kind of what drew me to the sport. I mean, would I have been drawn to it if there wasn't a picture like that, of that immense suffering? I don't know, to be honest with you.
I mean, I can see how a shorter race would be more active, and that would be interesting from that standpoint. But I think you lose something. I think the distance day after day, the length of it, and challenging conditions. And even though they did shorten the one stage, I mean, they still had to ride through day after day after day of just rain, cold.
They got their asses kicked.
Yeah,
in the first 2 weeks, weather-wise.
This was not like they were dumbing down this race. This has been pretty freaking hard conditions for them to race in, for sure. And I do think that's part of it. I think that needs to be a part of it. Absolutely.
It's also a testament to the human body to just go day after day after day. you know, and then how fine tuned it can be and how far it can go. I also think, I'm sure you guys have felt this, but you know, when you get to the complete, just obliterated mode where you've just smashed yourself on either on a ride, you push your body to the maximal limit where you actually feel the fatigue, you know, like that's a pretty powerful endorphin rush that you learn to like, especially as a cyclist. Like I like hurting. That's a weird thing. I like to hurt. Every time I go ride, I have to hurt. Like it's at some point I'm gonna hurt myself, you know, and it's like sometimes it's till your arms go numb. Sometimes it's not so long, you know, like it's like it really depends.
Yeah,
I don't know. Just to go fast, just moments, to feel.
Yeah, it's for me. I can understand that. I experienced that some myself. I know for a fact though that it's that I don't know how to describe it. It's a journey to get there, even on a ride. Yeah. And it goes for me from the, okay, I'm riding and this is fine. I'm warming up and muscles are moving, to I have to get through the itch part of it. And the itch part of it is when it starts to hurt and I know the hurt is coming and I have to decide whether or not I'm going to embrace it or not. And there's that moment in time where mentally I have to either check in or check out of the ride. And unfortunately, I check out too many times. There's a lot of times where I check in, but I think but honestly, for me, I have to have my mind on something else. And if I have my mind on something else, I'll be into the hurt section before I realize it, and then I love it. And I will expend everything and absolutely crush my soul doing it. But for me, I have to be looking at something else or thinking of something else. Something else has to be on my mind. I have to be like scrambling to grab a wheel, or chasing something down, or thinking about when are we turning and doing this route? Are we doing that? Or I've got to trick myself, because if I leave it to myself to actually go out there and do it and there's no one else around, I'm just as apt to want to check out of that pain just because I know how much it hurts. And then you give it 10 minutes and then I'll find myself in the pain cave anyway, because that's just what we do. But I don't know. But that's why I don't win a lot of races.
Yeah, different mentalities.
By a lot, I'll say any.
Well, there's an art form to suffering. You know, how to stay in
for
it,
sure.
how to stay in
Agreed.
it, how to focus on it, and how to, breathe, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And
you just got to get to the next minute.
Yeah, it's a decision.
So you're basically saying that we do, in fact, fetishize it, and it is part of what we love about this sport.
I mean, go ahead, Mike.
Go ahead. No, you go ahead.
No. No. You.
Well, now I forgot what I was going to say. Let me think about it for a second. What'd you say, Rob?
Do we fetishize it? Why do we fetishize it? That's even a word?
Yeah.
I gotta look that up.
We make it an object of our strange desire.
Here, I'll give my 2 cents real quick, Mike, while you try to
go for it. I got it. Go for it.
I think for me, when I see someone at the top level, no matter what race they're in, when they're suffering, for me personally, it's like it's a motivator, because I see athletes at the top, very top of the sport, able to just bury themselves, day in and day out, or in the current moment, or whatever, wherever they're at in the race. And to me, I look at that and that's motivating. And I think I'm going to latch onto this image that I'm watching, put it in my memory, and know that, if they can suffer this bad, I can too. And that helps me. I like it.
It reminds me.
Yeah. I mean, how many times have we been out on a ride? Have you been out on a ride where you're digging, you're finding yourself that hole, and I know it happened a lot more to me when I was younger, but you play over in your mind like some epic showdown.
Dozens and dozens and dozens of times.
And you're playing the role, or you even create one in your head, and you're playing one role or another, and you put a backstory into it, and it gets you through all of it. There were many individual TTs that I've done on the path throughout my years.
I back in the day. Huh?
Nothing.
Back in the day, before we had computers and phones, the way I trained indoors is I just had a set of rollers, and I used to have pictures out of like Bicycle Magazine and Velo News just pinned against the wall, and they were all guys, Jan Ulrich, Lance, Pantani, Lamond, like all guys just suffering. And I would ride the rollers and I had a mirror, like a body-sized mirror in front of me, so I could check my body position and just hammer. I'm really trying not to swear, by the way. Like I've caught myself
doing a good job. You're doing a good job.
I said I wouldn't do it anymore.
Gold star. Gold star.
Just going like flat out and just suffering. It was.
You speak of my language.
Yeah. One thing I do when I ride now, and it does vary how in shape you are, but like I'll see a light in the distance. In Colorado, we have pretty long stretches of road, not in every section, but some sections. And you can say, okay, I'm going to try to make it to that light or that intersection in 4 minutes, and it's like pretty far up there, and you just set a pace and you try to time it. I enjoy doing that because it's like you're judging the distance and judging your pace, and it gives me a destination to just hammer to see if I'm even close. And then I can judge how fast I'm going in that effort. It's not even an effort. It just makes that effort fun.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
putting some effort behind it and doing a little micro interval.
Got to have the carrot hanging out there for sure.
Oh yeah. We've all done that with rider in the distance. Oh, carrot.
God, you've been that rider in the distance.
Everybody's done it. If you're listening and you say you haven't, you're lying.
Every Rafa.
Yeah, it's funny. Yeah, Anthony and I were riding not that long ago, and we were doing, I forget what we were doing, but it was at the end of, it was the day that it was last week when you showed up and destroyed everybody.
I did no such thing.
Yeah. And Anthony and I were just kind of doing our thing after everybody was already gone. And we were talking, but then eventually there ended up being a guy on the path somewhere in front of us. And I noticed we slowly stopped talking. And you just kind of, even though we're both shattered, you start picking it up and you do your thing.
Yeah.
It's just part of it.
It is fun.
It's part of the fun of it.
It's fun.
Yeah, it is fun.
It is. It is.
Bike riding is fun. That's what I don't understand. Like with all the hate of the people on the road and drivers and stuff, and like people against like cycling, I don't understand. Like, I mean, either they don't know how to ride a bike,
a culture
or they haven't
war.
done it in years. Yeah, but
it's a basic culture war that we're having in this country.
I mean, even just riding a bike for those people is hard, right? So, I mean, why is it such a culture war? What is it?
Everything is a culture war right now.
Yeah, fair. That's fair.
I mean, if we had an explanation for why that is, we'd be more accomplished in life.
Going fast on a bicycle is such a thrill. It is so fun. I don't understand. I mean, even the people that do ride bikes and they just want to go super slow, and it's like, but that's not the fun part.
But faster
the fun part
is better.
Is faster. And I was like, okay, I guess.
Is it just me, or are you jealous of people that will go slow?
I am. I guess I am kind of jealous because I'm like chewing my nails figure in my head, the whole time I'm going slow, and I'm like, just don't do it, Leah. Just stick with, it's a recovery ride. You're riding with friends. It's, just don't go chase that person that's up the road. Let's let it go. Let it go. And it's just like,
let me put on a different song in my headphones and go slower.
Yeah. I mean, I say jealous of people that go slow, and I'm talking. You know what I'm talking about? It's the people that show up like if you're at a ride or whatever, it's a distance ride, and there's no pressure on anything, and somebody rolls in after you, and they're like, oh, it was great. Did you notice the, whatever animal out there, in the field? And I saw this happen and that, and it's like, yeah, I was focused on the wheel in front of me, and I was trying not to die or get dropped.
It's kind of embarrassing actually, because, and I don't know, maybe I'm just really unobservant in general. I think I am. Yeah. But like I ride routes like all the time in my area, right? And then there are people that live near me that we ride together a lot. And a lot of times they'll be like, oh, where that house is, that greenhouse that's got the blue shutters. And I'm like, huh? And the one on the corner. I'm like, I have no idea. And why are you even bothering to look at houses? I'm like focused on being as efficient as I can up the road going there, all the time when I'm on the bike. I'm not looking at the houses and the bushes and the landscaping. And I'm like, I do not notice. There could be a naked person out in their front lawn. I would not see it. I'm just like, just so enjoying the whatever is in my head that is propelling me forward on my bike in that moment. That's what I'm focused on.
Happy to know I'm not the only one that does that.
I'm the same. There are routes that I have probably taken over 1,000 times.
Right.
And there are sections, people will talk to me about it and they'll be the same kind of thing. Well, you know where the fence ends and then there's this like house that I have no clue what you're talking about.
Right.
Oh, I thought you've ridden up. Oh, I've ridden up there 1,000 times. Still have no clue what you're talking about. But I can tell you where every freaking crack is and where every little divot and pothole or frost heave or whatever the hell you want to talk about on that path. I can tell you how 5 years ago they repaved this section, and before that there were 3 chuck holes on the right hand side. So if you were heading south and it was after 4 o'clock, the shadow would cast over there and you'd end up hitting the chuck holes if you weren't paying attention. I can tell you about that. And I can tell you about like a turtle that would live like right on the edge of the path, but if he was 5 feet off, I would have seen him. I totally get that.
Yeah, I don't know. It's interesting. I mean, I do both. Like you can get super focused and you're just driving along and not paying attention. But then, I don't know road names. I know like destination points.
Yeah.
You know where this gas station
Landmarks.
is or this yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
But I
Turn
do
right
also
at the barn.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But I do enjoy trying to be conscious and look around because you are passing some pretty cool stuff. And I mean, you can get on a bike almost anywhere you want to go and places that cars can't go, So I used to, when we used to train when we were younger, my friend would always take the same roads all the time. And I eventually just like, dude, why don't you just turn left and just see where it goes?
It's a good one.
Just to see.
Right?
Yeah.
It's simple.
I get that, but I'm one of those guys. I am like, this is the route. This is what we ride. We don't turn. Why are you doing? At the same time, if I'm in the right mode where I know we're just going to explore, I can do that. But I have to be mentally set for that before the ride starts. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, everything, my internal, it's like, well, when are we going to get back then? And what's going on with this?
Like,
now is my nutrition thrown off? Am I going to have some am I going to bonk? Is this, I don't know how to meter this, and well, where am I going to get water? Yep. All this starts to just like play in my head.
Because cyclists are creatures of habit. You do the same thing over time. Now, there's been a bunch of group rides where I'm like, hey, can we go the other way? Can we just at least same roads and go backwards maybe?
Oh.
Dude,
let's just try a
Congress.
Different way. No. This route's been going on for 35 years and and it's like, who cares?
I have to admit, I am that way. I am the route's got to go this way. But I am that way because of another factor, and that's that if it's a group ride and it's at the same day and it's on the same route, it has to stay that way. Because if it doesn't, that's how you build like ridership in the ride. Because as people learn it and they get to know it, you'll have people that meet you out on the route instead of, meeting you in the parking lot at the start. They know they're going to be at this intersection like 45 minutes in, so they're going to be there waiting for you. Or, there's people that start to learn the nuances of where they want to attack and where they're going to take a poll or where they want to like do better this week or anything like that. And incrementally, it makes the ride more enjoyable when it's repetitive and you've got the same thing happening all the time. I do understand the appeal of doing a different route every week, but you start to find that people just stop showing up because they don't know what to expect. They don't know how many miles they're going to do and this and that. Where I will say I differ is that we will do the route backwards. We will make changes or additions. Like this year.
Same route, same roads, different direction.
But I won't do it in the middle of the year. I will do it for a year. So like I'll go out and I'll test it before we start up. And if it works, I'll be like, okay, this year we're doing the same route. We're just doing it backwards, and then we're doing that for the season. And then everybody grows to expect the same. So like this year we moved it up because Penny Road Pub doesn't exist anymore. We moved it up to Presidential Park so we don't have to cross all the major highways anymore. And we're doing this strange figure 8 loop up in Barrington Hills. It works. I like the route. I don't know. It's got a hell of a lot more climbing. Yeah. And I'm not built for that, but it's already making me a better rider, I think. But, so I'm not opposed to changing it, but for me, it's got to happen like, if we were like, okay, in July we're going to do this.
I'm just the dick that goes on your group ride and says,
And
why
then
don't we do that?
all of a
But I
sudden just
don't
goes,
organize
boom.
the group ride. So my apologies. The rides are still fun. So keep doing them.
I wasn't near the front. So last Thursday, when you were riding with Dustin, did you just start going, all right, well, why don't we go this way? And Dustin, did he be like, oh, no, we don't know. Okay, we could do that.
No. From the route that you sent me, I knew where I was going.
Okay,
I knew where I was going. And I wasn't gonna be that guy and deviate from it.
The every aspect,
we never would have known.
Every aspect.
It's your
that
mic,
you mentioned.
Mike.
Oh, that's
Every aspect that you mentioned, go.
That you talked about the group ride is just also an element of safety. When people can depend on it, where all the turns are,
that's
the
true.
place where you can attack. So it's just overall safer when you're, I agree. It's good to have the same routes or routes that people get used to, so you can announce it. It's like, hey, we're doing this route or this route, but it's the same route with the meeting points.
I mean,
you made key points.
Do you guys ever get bored riding the same ride all the time for your get out and ride kind of ride?
No, it depends. Depends what you have going on. I mean, my riding now is not the same as it used to be. If I was still training, you might get old, but it's also nice to know the route that you have. That's the hour-long loop, or it's the, whatever, however long it takes you to get through it, or it's got, the climbs or the flats. You have routes that you can take so you can go work on your spinning or sprinting or climbing or time trialing or just riding for fun and health.
Nice.
I gotta agree. I mean, I know people always go, I ride the path, and it's silly, it's basic, but where we're at, I know how to get a 20-mile ride in. I can get out there, get it done, get back to the shop. I don't have to burn a lot of time away from everything, and I know what to expect. I know where to pay attention, what kind of safety issues I might run into, and for the most part, it's super safe. So I ride that damn section of the path so many times it's disgusting, and yet it challenges me every time.
Oh yeah, it's always windy in one of the directions. But yeah,
for sure. But getting back to this old, we were talking about fetishizing the sport and what we like to see in it, and we always usually in that discussion you fall back on to comparing riders today to riders from before. And I did a little bit of it with the Andy Hampton bit and pulling that out. But it started to dawn on me. Tim and I were talking earlier, and we were talking about how, like what Tim was saying with the new generation of riders that are in here and that are coming up. And here we have a bunch of, you can call them armchair quarterbacks, but it's a lot of riders that have been doing it for a long time who are telling them they're weak. They're not. They won't push through the pain. They won't push through the sickness. They won't push through the weather conditions. They're weaker than these riders were. And it dawned on me while we were having the conversation that if the riders today were listening to the riders that we're talking about, which were riders from the 80s and 90s, that would be like the riders in the 80s and 90s listening to riders in the 60s and 70s. And quite honestly, if somebody that rode in the 60s and 70s came up to me in the 90s and told me how to ride, I'd probably just roll my eyes and go back to doing what I was doing. Well, are we really at that point? Are we over the hill? Is our input no longer valid?
Input like how? Like what do you mean by input?
Input to who?
I don't know. The feedback, like if we were to sit here and say, well, those riders aren't tough enough. They're not sticking it out.
I would never say that about
or how about if we were like, I don't think that they're a real rider if they can't go into this race and this race and then still do this, then they're not a well-rounded rider.
I wouldn't necessarily do that because from my vantage point, I'm sitting on a sofa watching them on the television and they're performing at a very high level. So for me to say that is hypocritical. I wouldn't necessarily do that. I mean, I'm in awe of what they're doing, regardless of how they're doing it. They're doing it at a very high level, a level that I was never able to achieve. Mike, you achieved it. So I'm sure your vantage point is even more different than mine.
I'm first off, we'll come back to this in a second. Fetish sizing. Can we just say glorifying? Fetish sizing seems so strange. Fetish. Is it a fetish?
Is it making you feel weird?
I am so glad you said that because I was like, I don't like using this word. I don't want to use it.
Fetish sizing's the hardship of cycling.
Glorifying.
Glorifying.
I like
Glorifying is
overly
better.
glorifying. That's fine.
So you have to go back and edit this, and every time you say this word, you've got to like dub over it.
Yeah. Well,
No.
It's interesting. So what stage were the other older riders, retired riders, calling these guys out? What stage did it happen on? What was going on? Was it the shortened stage?
Right, Leah? Wasn't it that? I think the social media banter came after that, wasn't it?
I have no idea. I did not see that.
I think Rob knows the exact answer to this one. But I think the Twitterverse erupted after that.
Okay, so
after that stage.
I think, just because guys raced in the past doesn't mean the guys racing now have to continue racing in unsafe conditions. I mean, when you're racing your bike in those conditions, it's already dangerous enough in beautiful conditions. And then you throw in like all kinds of other, rain and weather and road furniture. I mean, you can seriously get hurt, die, people die, at the same point in time, people die doing a lot of things, and a lot of different kinds of competition. It doesn't mean you have to take the risks. And the other thing is the riders, it's really where the dangerous sections are. It's hard to have a field sprint in a town where you're getting divided by road furniture coming into a right and then a left and then a right-hand turn, and you're diving around, an officer or someone standing with a flag like this. You can't see these people,
you're not paying attention for them.
Yeah. And also the fans get in the way too. So it's like, it really depends on the situation and where they are. Cause you crash in a right-hand turn and it's packed full of fans, that's why you have the fencing, but it's not always there.
I do not understand how these guys, especially when they don't have the fencing and they're going up a climb and the fans literally, these riders are looking at a wall of people standing right in front of them that step out of the way at just the last second. It's like,
that's dangerous.
It's insane, but like
that's
it's always been that way.
Yeah,
it's always been that way.
Exactly.
So I guess the riders just have to assume that they're going to move because you can't react to it.
It's bizarre.
You have to just keep plowing forward and hope they move out of the way.
And they got the smoke bombs. They're touching you all over.
It's crazy. Yeah, it's actually awesome.
It'd be like you're in my personal space. I'm trying to focus here.
What other sport
has the fan interference gotten worse now? It seems like
it's always been there. It's always been there. I've hit a fan. Guy laid me out in Colorado. It was 2K.
Somebody.
So you hit an American fan though.
Yeah.
What about a European fan? Because it seems like they
get hit. They get hit all the time. I mean, you put them in the same venue, people are going to get hit. It happens all the time.
Yeah.
It just seems to me, to Leah's point of it getting worse, it seems to me as though the general, like as a society, we're getting more like fame focused and whatever, and disconnected from reality. And it just seems like along that same trend, we're seeing more and more fans getting caught up in things. Now, is it that we're just capturing it better?
General
with the
lack.
coverage
I think that we can
Probably.
see in a lot of areas, not just in the sport, where there's just a general lack of respect anymore.
Yeah, true.
And
from the fans,
No, just in general, everybody.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
In all walks of life, I think there's just a growing
society
lack
in itself
of respect.
is less respectful.
So it doesn't surprise me to see a lack of respect growing amongst the fans in these races, and it's really sad, but it's really just a reflection of society in general anymore.
I mean,
is that what you call it? You call it a lack of respect, or is it just that they're me?
Yeah, well, that exactly.
Same thing.
Society as well today. I think one year didn't Chris Froome get like piss thrown in his face?
Well, that's the other side of it. This is the other side of it. I don't know how many accidents you're talking about, Leah. I mean, I know that this happens, but maybe you've seen an uptick in like stuff you've watched, and the aggressive stuff you're talking about, Tim. I mean, that's insane. I mean, that's the problem when you have access to the athletes like that. I mean, you can be anywhere on the course and have direct access, and that's insane to have a bottle of piss thrown in your face. Like, that's insane.
Yeah, I remember that from the Tour de France one year.
I think we're all kind of not articulating what I think maybe is in the back of our heads, that the way that society is today, it's just, I've always kind of felt like it's a matter of time before something horrible happens in a race because of that unfettered access to the athletes themselves. Now, I don't want to articulate what that may be, but it just seems like, with as horrible as daily life seems to get, that something really bad is going to happen at some point.
Yeah.
Now, if there seems to be no way of changing that, though.
I don't understand how we can't fucking figure that out. I mean,
well, it would be fencing along the entire course.
That's how you solve it. And then guess what? You got people
society.
that are bummed out. Oh, yeah, you can't.
Yeah,
you can't.
And today's day and age, you got to fulfill people's needs. Maslow's hierarchy needs, make people happy, make people feel like they belong to something. Like, what creates happiness? I mean, what are people so fucking angry about? And I'm swearing now because it's a problem. We have a lot of problems. There's a lot of problems.
Mike, I like when you swear.
Yeah, so do I.
Yeah.
Shows passion.
I mean, we see it in drivers on the road.
Yeah, it's so sad.
The younger generations is just more.
They feel more entitled.
More entitled and more apt to just say, yeah, I know this. I know I shouldn't do this, but you know what? Fuck it. I'm going to go do it. What are you going to do? You going to stop me?
Yeah.
It's like where, a generation before, people would have been like, oh, no, I can't do that. I'd get in trouble.
Yeah.
Now people are just like, yeah, screw it. Fuck it.
Now, there were always people that even before didn't really care if they were going to get in trouble. There's that impulse control. The lack of impulse control has always been there. What I think the major change is a generalized disconnection of people from interactive society and realizing that the things they say and or do directly affect other people, because it's all about me, so to speak. Are
we talking about teenagers here? Because we're
everything. Just
it's a generational thing.
It's drivers act the way that they do because it's all about them. They have lost sight of the fact that everyone else in all these other cars are also human beings and individuals that are all going through the same kind of life challenges that they're going through. And we don't have any empathy or sympathy for anybody else. And we've just have greatly reduced emotional intelligence as a society, it seems like. Whereas I've always made and I'll try to do this in not a political way, but I've always said there's different leanings towards public policy in large cities versus smaller areas. And I have a feeling it's because if people said what they say in smaller areas, in densely populated areas where you had to rub shoulders with other human beings on a daily basis, they get their face punched real quick. And that's where you see a change in policy towards more one of that has to respect other people, whether you like it or not. There's my political pitch. Did I do that without saying any politics?
I don't know. I mean, just it seems like the spectators are just, there is a more of a sense of, I see them being less concerned with potentially causing an issue for the racers. And where I think, yes, I think issues and collisions with fans have always happened. But I think in general, it's just like, also not just because, that was an accident and poor judgment, because they would never have wanted to do that. Now I think people are just like, I'm sure I'll get out of the way, but if I don't, what are they going to do?
I'm going to lean over the barrier and get this photo for my phone, and then guess what? The rider smashes into it, causes a crash.
Oops.
And
that
I don't about my phone.
Yeah, I mean that obviously happened. You saw that happen. There's all kinds of video of that has happened for a long time. I mean, I ran into a guy looking at it through a camera. It's the same thing. They just have an iPhone out there, but I don't think people realize And a lot of these fans, some of them are diehard fans. Some of them have never been there. Sometimes, you get the shot, sometimes you don't. But these fans either have done this before and gotten the shot and been used to it, or are just there for the first time and don't realize how close the riders are, how fast the riders are coming, how much of the road they take up, how much of a whir it is when they go by, right? It's a moving mass of human flesh and bikes. Going
right. Yeah, I got to say, I was surprised the first time I was in that situation, for sure. You think you know it, and then it happens, and then you're like, oh, crap.
Yeah, that's a lot of wind moving by me. I mean, the wind moves when you go by, like they go by.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
Man, that's a flow. It's cool. Yeah, it's a rush.
It's like you're standing next to a highway.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've always watched those, those portions where they're on a specific climb, and then you got the spectator that's running right next to you, and you're just like, would I be that guy, or would I respect their space and just cheer them on from afar? Part of you as the fan wants to run next to them when they're going, 8 miles an hour, 10 miles an hour, and cheer for them that way. But part of you needs to be respectful and give them their space and realize that they're in a moment and just cheer them on and, wish them well from afar and not be in their face.
My social awkwardness would mean that I would never run alongside.
Yeah, I think that's like super disrespectful, and I probably would never do that.
Even if unless it was somebody I knew, like personally knew. Like if I'm at a race and I see one of you guys climbing and doing something, I am not going to be like aggressively in your face, but I'm going to be running alongside, and shouting amazing things. But I'm not going to get in your way.
I liked the fans. I liked having the fans. It was empowering in a very, very interesting way. It was a rush to race in front of people. And, stuff like this behind me that happens is because you have so many people crowding into a space. Everyone wants to see it come by. So it just naturally pushes in. How do you prevent accidents from happening? I'm sure there are quite a few more aggressive people out there, but, I never encountered somebody that was, I don't know. There's lots of different races.
I mean, to a certain degree, I think it's part of the nature and one of the many hazards in these big stage races. I don't think you can completely eliminate the risk from that, just like you can't eliminate the risk from lots of other things on the road. A slippery paint line had some oil on it, and you name it. It's part of it. It is part of the game.
It's all part of it.
But at a certain point, though, I think it can get too much, I guess. I mean, and that is the reason why they have solid fencing for, the final part.
The finish.
I always used to like it when you'd see like an area like that's all, heavy with spectators, and then the one rider's having a bad day or is pissed and then punches the spectator.
Yeah.
I mean, that should never happen, but it's just like, oh man.
Oh, we enjoy it.
Yeah. We what's the word?
Schadenfreude.
No, you're
fetishize.
Yeah.
we do fetishize Schadenfreude.
We glorify that, not in a good way, but it's just like, wow, that's either a really bad day or that guy was disrespecting this rider.
Schadenfreude.
Sometimes those
taking joy in others' misfortune, which is what we do. That's what we do when we like this sport.
Yeah, it sucks. I don't want to do that. I don't want to Schottenheim this or Schnotty fried this or whatever.
We're Schultzifying.
I don't want to do that. I just want to like it.
My name is Schultz.
I just want to like it, and I do.
I know.
Some of those spectators probably get quite hurt. I mean, the guy that I hit had to have gotten hurt, right? I mean, some of these people, it depends how they get hurt, whether it's a bike flying or a body flying. Dude, if you weigh 135 pounds, that's a pretty light rider. Or 175 pounds like I used to weigh. That's a lot of mass coming at you at 35 miles an hour.
Oh, yeah. You want to get even crazier? So a friend of mine does rally car racing. And one of the big things in rally racing for the spectators is to reach out and try to touch the cars when they go by.
That's idiotic.
And I don't know if it happened to him or somebody he knew, that after the race, they found a finger in the mirror, the mirror.
Oh.
I mean, but that's crazy. If you ever watch this stuff on TV, it's insane.
I cannot laugh at that. That sucks, but Man, that's what you get. Just stand in the road and turn into a pink mist.
Like, what kind of insanity would these spectators to try to touch one of these cars that are almost seeming under control, drifting through a turn?
Yeah,
lose a finger, man.
It is crazy,
nuts.
He's probably proud of it too.
Speaking of losing a finger,
I wonder if it was his middle finger. Did he lose his middle finger?
I don't know.
Does it count if it's his thumb?
Mr.
His life's gonna be miserable.
Mr. Tom Danielson, due to cancer,
gosh, yeah, I saw that.
Had a finger amputated.
Yeah,
and is on the mend as we speak now. And it kind of got me around to what I was going to lead into before of this riders of a previous generation having an opinion, and having those riders being from the 80s, 90s, whatever, having an opinion for current riders nowadays. And it creates this scenario that we saw unfold on Twitter, where you have riders of yore arguing with each other and basically calling each other clowns and saying one was better than the other or what have you because of what they did or didn't do during that era. And do we accept the mistakes of the past and move on? Or do we throw these riders in with the general idea of we wouldn't have taken advice from riders from the 60s, so why would we take the advice of these riders now? And I throw Danielson in there because of the admitted doping that he did extensively and still probably does. But
I think that the riders that we're talking about people that were admitted dopers. That doesn't mean that they don't have things of value of their knowledge, experience of value. Can you separate the two?
That's the question. In particular, we know we're talking about the argument that Johan Brunel got into with Jonathan Vaughters and how they pulled Lance into it. So the three of them argued via Twitter this week, basically calling each other clowns left and right. Do we give a shit?
Personally, I don't.
I actually, it was interesting because I looked at, I read through like all the comments thread underneath Vaughters' post at one point, and there was a whole string of comments, and I'm like, oh, this is going to be interesting. I got my morning coffee, and I actually have a renewed, increased amount of respect for Vaughters. I like the fact that he addressed what everybody had to say. I like what he said. I think he was very straight up honest about frickin' everything. And all the people that were commenting on Lance's thread were all, you rock, bro. You're just, they're all fanboys.
They're fanboy bros.
And I was just like, all right, I don't know. I never really followed a whole lot of knowledge on Vaughters, but I do have to say that I kind of like what he had to say.
I'm interested to see what Mike is pulling.
I don't have the Twitters.
This is a smart man. I have a long history with Vaughters. Without Vaughters, I would never have had my opportunity in Europe. I never would have had my opportunity to go to the Olympics. And he and I have definitely rubbed shoulders in a couple different ways, where we argued back and forth for a little bit. But I consider him my friend now, for sure. I mean, he was on the board of Peddling Minds for a little while. And it is interesting to... I didn't see the Twitter sphere of the Brunel Armstrong. I didn't see him calling it out, but I almost encourage it in a way. It's about fucking time to hear. I'd like to see Vaughters call it as it is and put those guys right on the public spot. There's definitely an ethical thing. We're touching on a subject here that, it's like we're talking about doping right now, like those guys definitely raced at a time where it was pretty prominent. And I don't know if you had to do it or not. It seems like you had to do it to be competitive in that atmosphere. And I think those guys take a stance on that, knowing that if they didn't do that, they wouldn't have been competitive. But at the same point in time, it's still a choice. And it wasn't like well known. You know, you didn't know who was on it. You just speculated. So it was like, I'm going to take this stuff because I think so and so was on it, and I'm going to try to beat them, even though you know it's illegal. You know, so it's definitely like I'm happy to see some of this come out. You know, I still think, and I'll say it, I think, you know, Lance, I got into cycling because of Lance. I watched him win the Thrift Drug Classic. You know, I've never actually shaken the guy's hand, but you know, like he was a hero of mine for sure. And I think he could do a lot more for the sport, but even today, I think he has a lot more opportunity to do stuff for the sport. I don't know why he doesn't. Maybe he hates it. I don't know. I have no idea. If you have the name and brand of Lance Armstrong, even after the fact, I mean, how many people listen to his podcast? I mean, come on, man. You can do more than a podcast. I mean, he did the Uvalde thing. He gave bike to the Uvalde kids, which was very interesting and very powerful, I think. But, you know, it's like, come on, man. Like, what else could you do to support cycling? Like, I know you still love it. You know,
yeah, I agree.
You know,
I fully agree that he could do more.
And that's not like a pop at him. Like you know, some of these guys that I race with that got, you know, that were in that doping sphere, you know, they're good guys. You know, I can't say that I respect that decision because I was a clean rider, and I know many other clean riders that didn't get paid what those guys were getting paid off of results that they got when they were dirty. You know, so it's hard for me to justify that ethical choice, but I do like these people as people. I find them funny. I find them smart. I know they're good fathers, you know, like, but at the same point in time, you know, Armstrong's tweet at JV calling him a clown is the same mindset that got him to be a doper in the fucking first place, man. I have to say it. It's like, you're only calling him a clown for what? What's the reason? Right?
He's got that bully mentality.
Yeah.
It's a weird thing to put out there. And it just shows like the color. I don't dislike the guy. I actually find him really smart and interesting, and I would actually like to meet him one day. But I, at the same point in time, I also, when I say that, it's like, whatever, you know, Vaughters is actually doing something in the sport of cycling and has been consistently doing it for over 10 years and came clean.
Yeah.
I think I find myself to be generally disappointed, and I think I had really hoped that despite everything, Lance would have grown up and seen the error of his ways and turned that into doing something good.
He still has time
somehow, and not to say that he hasn't done some things like you said with the bikes or whatever, but his attitude still just fucking sucks.
It's just arrogance.
He comes across as such a self-centered ass. And every time he starts, you know, talking about stuff, and I'm like, wow, that's sad. He just doesn't get it. It seems like he never really grew up with that.
Yeah.
Matured past it. And it's unfortunate because, you know, there's so many things he could have turned around and done good.
Hey, he still has time to do it. Like I'm saying, like I think everybody is good in them. You can always turn it around. And I'm not saying
absolutely.
You know, he's a complete monster. It's just the way he's carrying himself, and it's just the way, you know, it's just like, dude, you know, like, I don't know. I'm sure he also is bitter about a lot of things. I mean, you don't live that lifestyle. I'm not going to defend the guy, you know, because I mean, you dug your own grave a little bit here, pal. But you know,
yeah.
Vaughters, I'm curious to see where it all comes out. JV is a very, very. He puts a lot of thought into stuff. He's not dumb, and he's certainly not a clown.
Yeah, I mean, I really like the way he defended his rider that was basically being bullied on the one stage, and that was, you know, people were, you know, he got a little heated, and he owned it, you know, right there, you know, in the comments on Twitter, and he was like, I kind of overreacted a bit, but you know, you're right. And he would agree when people would call him out on shit. And he's like, yeah, you're right. You're right. I stand corrected. And I was like, well, that's mad respect. There's not many people whose ego will actually.
You'll never hear an Armstrong do that.
No, exactly. I think that's my point.
Nope.
And also what he said wasn't wrong. I mean, he was, that guy was cycling is a game of chess as well as it is tenacity and going hard and going, as hard as you can to beat the other guys. And if you can't drop those guys, they're not pulling through, then stop pulling, stop attacking. He lost the race for himself and then cried poo-poo at the end. Oh, poo-poo. He
did. I did the most work. I should win. It's not how it goes.
Yeah, no.
It's not how it goes.
Yeah. I mean, dude, stop throwing your queens and rooks around. You're getting taken. And Vaughters called it out.
Spoiler alert, he did it again. He did it again today.
I was sitting there watching that whole thing, and is it Rubio that ended up winning the stage? It was just, and I'm sitting there watching this, and I'm like, they're just going to sit up there. Those two are just going to like keep battling at each other, and this guy is going to come up and just win, and he did. It was like beautiful. It was beautiful.
Pretty funny. You guys should read this book. He wrote this book.
I thought of that when you showed it.
Book. Yeah.
I'm into stuff like that. What is it called? One-way ticket?
One-way ticket.
Cool.
Okay. Yeah. It's on the list.
Yeah.
Yeah. The man changed my life. I can't let that go.
Nor should you. Nor should you.
I mean, he lied to me when I was getting fired from the team, let go from the team, which we had a falling out over. But you forgive and forget. You have to let that shit go. I appreciate the guy more in a relationship of kindness and forgiveness than I do holding against him for lying. I mean, the reason he lied to me was because it's hard to say, dude, hey, we're not bringing you back on next year. I would have rather him have owned that, and he and I talked about this at length, but it's better to have that heart to heart and say, dude, that fucking pissed me off, man. But water under the bridge.
Yeah, I mean, you could look at Vaughters and say that he's certainly helped you in your career more than he's hurt you in your career, correct?
For sure. 100%.
So there's nothing to be mad about.
Not at all.
At the end of the day, really, cycling is a business. It's a sport, but it's also a business. The athletes get paid. You are an employee of said brand.
Wait, I get paid?
No. Professionally.
Oh. Okay.
Not on the grassroots level here. You get paid in buttonhole. Yeah.
Speaking of which, buttonhole chamois cream available at your local retailer. Stop by and pick some up at your favorite bike shop. You can also usually find it online somewhere if that's the way you like to shop. Apart from that, take a minute, go out to pedalingminds.org. And by the way, what is it? The 6th year anniversary of getting your 501c designation.
It is the 6th year.
That's what I sent you the memory of today. You posted it. It was like 6 years.
I didn't reply to that. Yeah, we were in business 2 years prior to that, and then it became a nonprofit in 2017. It became, it's funny, and this is a tangent. My racing LLC when I was racing was Meatball Express, and Meatball Express became Pedaling Minds. So it literally went from racing business to Pedaling Minds. Yeah, check us out. We're working on some cool stuff and we're doing good work. We have summer camp starting next week, which is why I won't be here for the next couple of weeks.
You will be missed, but we will be applauding your efforts.
Be missed.
I'll try to get on. I'll try to get on, not next week, the week after, so I can show you how exhausted I look. It takes everything.
Oh, if it's anything like that, like 5 podcasts ago, oof, that was rough. It's like let's airmail Mike a pillow so he can sleep through this podcast.
It's the hardest thing I've ever done. I have so much respect for teachers now, teaching kids, and I have 15, and it's moving. It's like it's a moving class. But if you have 30 kids, man, it's exhausting. I have mad respect for teachers who do it day after day after day, and then go home and take their work home and do the grades and educational
and
plans
get peanuts for it.
Yeah,
dude.
Not only get peanuts, but have to spend your own money getting supplies and everything.
Yeah, that is. And all the money we spent, this is a whole nother conversation,
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, all the money that's wasted in the national debt thing is a freaking problem. The amount of interest that we pay is insane. How we can't figure this shit out, people? This is the United States of America. Okay, we should sign off.
Mike wants to rant. Sign off.
If you would like to, help offset debt.
If anybody listening will be
only
out
one
at
aspect.
Memorial Day races in Iowa, look for me in the red and black Cymet tent, and I'll give you a Road is Dead sticker.
There you go. Now I got to get this out tonight. Thanks.
Yeah, no, you got at least 36 hours.
Snake Alley races coming up.
I enjoyed these conversations with you all. I hope that people listen or watch. Who the hell knows? But if they do,
I look forward to Thursdays.
Yeah, it is fun. It's been fun.
Yeah. I would agree.
I hope people. People should leave comments. We keep saying that, but
we get a lot.
People
we get a lot. I don't necessarily share them all because they're just. It's awkward to copy and paste, and it's just general. Like a lot of them are just like, "Hey, that was a great episode. Thanks."
I would like to personally see them.
Yeah, I try to share as many as I can. I got one. I got in a long conversation. This is a nod to Nick Hand. Got in a conversation with him yesterday, and I did want to kind of cover that today, but I'm not going to go into detail. But we talked about the idea that courses are too difficult for beginner racers. So in this idea of we shorten down races, I also wanted to hit the concept of for amateur racing, at least at the beginning levels, is it time for the hard crit to go away? Is it time for the hard road race to go away so that we can open and welcome newer racers into it? Tim has a definite opinion on that.
Do you want to talk about that now, or we want to do that at another episode?
Well, we can do it again in the future. We'll hit that up in the next time.
Yeah.
Well, at least we got a topic for it. So, thanks for joining us. And I guess we'll be back next week. Enjoy the ride and enjoy your Memorial Day weekend.
Yeah, have a great weekend, people. Yeah, exactly. Happiness.
Ride your bike.
Have a safe
Ride your
one.
bike.